Channel 2 News special presentation. Your source for politics across Alaska. This is Alaska's Political Pipeline with Steve McDonald.
Well, welcome to this week's edition of The Pipeline. As you can see, we're not broadcasting from our normal haunt in Midtown Anchorage. Instead, we've taken the show on the road, so to speak. We're in the capital city, Juneau, and we're broadcasting just from outside the Senate chambers in the Capitol building. These are tense times here in the Capitol building. Earlier this week, there was a sharp exchange between Governor Bill Walker and House Republican leaders. It all stems from a bill introduced by House Speaker Mike Chenault that would alter the governor's latest plan to build a natural gas pipeline. Now, we'll talk to Governor Bill Walker about the latest developments in the pipeline projects a little later on in our program. We'll also speak to House Speaker Mike Chenault and get an idea of where we go from here. But first, being in Juneau also gives us a chance to catch up with our friend and colleague Adam Pinsker, who of course covers the legislature for Channel 2 News. Adam, it's good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Steve. And you brought the rain down.
Yeah, we bring the good weather, that's for sure.
It was sunny until you guys came down, but we're happy to have you.
Good to be here, Adam. I've never seen Governor Walker as angry or as animated as I saw him during that news conference earlier this week. What was it specifically that set him off?
It was Senate Bill 132. I mean, he took that bill, waved in the air, and said that it was unconstitutional. It was basically an act by the House leadership, Speaker Chenault, to sort of limit the governor's ability to expand the Alaska standalone pipeline. The governor said he wants a gas pipeline, whichever one comes first. The legislature is saying, look, this is our project, and part of being the leader is working with the legislature on what was already in place before this administration came in, which was Senate Bill 138, which was the Alaska Liquefied Natural Gas Line project. The ASAP project was supposed to be a backup. So I think the legislature was looking for some guidance, and they wanted a point person. And I spoke with the speaker this week, and he actually said that finally the governor appointed sort of a liaison on this issue, and it's Dana Fauci who's in charge of the Alaska Gas Line Development Corporation.
Now, so have things calmed down? Has the relationship smoothed out a little bit since that news conference earlier in the week?
I'm not sure if the speaker and governor are going to have tea and crumpets together, but I think things have calmed down a little bit. You know, they did meet this week. They talked about the governor's recent trip to Washington, D.C. to meet with the Obama administration, talk about ANWR, those kinds of issues. So I think Governor Walker realizes that he needs to work with the House Speaker, the Senate President, and leadership on these issues. Of course, his predecessor was a former legislator and knew that kind of a role. Of course, you know, the governor also he campaigned on getting gas to Alaskans, on Medicaid expansion, and I think he feels like there's been some interference in this building to get those things done.
Welcome back to Alaska's Political Pipeline. We are in the governor's mansion in Juneau, and we are with Governor Bill Walker. Good to see you again, sir.
Good to see you. Thank you for being here.
As we do this interview, it is the 45th day of the legislative session, officially the halfway point. What's your assessment of how things have gone so far?
You know, I think they're going fine. You know, first let me just say we call this the people's house. It's their house. It's not ours. We're honored to live here. I think the session's going fine. We've had a number of opportunities to get together with leadership and talk about issues of importance to the state. So I'm comfortable with where we are.
Have there been, this is your first session, rookie mistakes, for lack of a better term, things that you've learned the hard way that you could tell us about?
You know, I think I always get the question, what's the biggest surprise about being governor? And you know, for me, the biggest surprise I think was $46 oil. Once you get past that, and I think just I enjoy the work. I enjoy the opportunity. I like to meet people. I like to work with people, and so I find it. That's a surprise to me as far as how enjoyable the process is, and it's you know, it has been enjoyable.
This past week has been perhaps the most contentious week of your administration, I would assume. We had House Speaker Chenault introduce Bill 132 regarding the pipeline, and would basically throw a few roadblocks in front of your plans for constructing a natural gas pipeline. I don't think I've ever seen you, I'm sure I've never seen you as angry and animated as you were Monday during that news conference. Was it, what set you off there? Was it what was in the bill, or just the fact the bill was even introduced?
Well, I think that it was I'm concerned about anything that's going to cause us to slow down on anything. And I think what's important to understand is what I'm talking about is taking what's already in place, not starting anything new, just take what we already have in place, the small volume line, increase the volume of that. And so we have two options to get our gas to Tidewater, and certainly Nikiski is the destination. So it's just really I really don't want us to have our hands tied behind our backs in that process in some way. So that's really, I think, what the biggest concern I had. And I've talked to leadership since then. I've talked to legislators. I spoke with a number of times with meetings with Speaker Chenault. And I think, you know, we share the same passion. Everybody wants to get a pipeline built, and we might have different opinions about how to do it. But as you know, I think we all share that passion together.
Welcome back to Alaska's Political Pipeline. We are in the state capitol for this edition of the program, and we are sitting down with House Speaker Mike Chenault. And Mr. Speaker, thanks for letting us in your office and here in Juneau.
Well, thanks, Steve, for coming in. And,
appreciate it.
Letting me participate in your program.
Halfway through the legislative session, is the legislature where you thought it would be in terms of its work?
I think pretty much we're where we are. You know, the budget was a big issue, and we knew that marijuana would be an issue out there. And they're working through the process, so we're on schedule for the budget. And, you know, we have the marijuana issue and gas pipeline issues and numerous other issues. But for the most part, I think we're on schedule and moving forward.
The marijuana regulations have been debated here in the legislature. What's the timetable on that? When can people expect to see those finish up?
You know, and I don't know. You know, the legislation is going to probably come in 2 or 3 pieces, is my guess. One dealing with decriminalization, and then certainly the edible portion and some other issues as far as a board to regulate marijuana. So those will happen, you know, toward the end of session more than likely.
This is a week that saw a lot of fireworks, particularly between you and Governor Walker. It was all over the proposed gas pipeline. What's your relationship with the governor right now at this point?
Well, you know, before it was probably a little rocky. We don't see eye to eye on a few things. Number one being how we move a gas pipeline project forward. Over the last few days, since we had introduced House Bill 132, we've had met with the governor yesterday for lunch in a joint leadership meeting, and then this morning I actually had breakfast with the governor over at his mansion, and we talked about some of the issues, some of the concerns he has, some that I had, and we've basically agreed that we need to work together. We don't need to, you know, fight it out in the newspapers or at press conferences. We need to sit down and actually have those conversations.
Were you surprised at how angry he was during that news conference?
I think a little surprised, yeah. You know, knowing the process of a piece of legislation that's introduced as a bill, and it's a starting point, and it's a talking point of how do we either get our point across and how we move forward, or how does the administration react to that, and you know, how can we work out our differences if there are some. So it was kind of surprising, but as I said, I think we're probably on better footing today than we were a couple days ago.
Welcome back to the pipeline. We certainly enjoyed our time here in the governor's mansion. It was great to see the place and all the history that it contains. Another building that contains a charm of its own is the state capitol, and we were able to take a tour of that as well. We're here in the lobby of the state capitol building, and with us is Tim Rocky. He is a page for the legislature during the day, but right now he's going to be our tour guide. Tim, start the tour off for us. What are we seeing here in the lobby?
So right behind us, Steve, we have one of the 2 carvings from Joan Bugbee Jackson. Joan Bugbee Jackson is an artist from Cordova, and she carved Harvest of the Land and Harvest of the Sea, located on either side of the lobby in the state capitol building here. Harvest of the Land depicts the Native Alaskans hunting caribou, and she spent 9 months researching this to make sure that she could accurately portray the hunt that the natives go on. On the other side, we have Harvest of the Sea, which features fishing in large quantities with nets that the natives would do to feed themselves. Right over here, we have the bust of Elizabeth Paratovich. Now, born in 1911 in Petersburg, Alaska, Paratovich was a Tlingit Native American, Native Alaskan, and she was able to fight for civil rights here in Alaska. In Juneau, she was not happy with the no native signs that they saw and wanted to end discrimination, so she gave the final and convincing testimony before the territorial legislature on the Alaska Civil Rights Act in 1945.